Hey everyone, it's Pastor and Heidi again. We took a little break from recording for the first half of Easter week, our little Easter break, I guess you call it. I gotta tell you, we did not stop thinking about waiting, which is what we were talking about when we last got online. You add to that all the stuff in the Easter accounts and the disciples waiting after Jesus died and before he rose again. And we really got thinking about how that relates to what Jesus said to the disciples in Luke 24 when he asked them, "Why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts?" And that's verse 38. But in verse 44, he explains why he was surprised. He said, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms."
But when that everything didn't happen the way the disciples thought it would, they lost their peace.
Yeah, that they did. And that, by the way, is exactly what the word here used for troubled means. The Greek word behind troubled. It refers to the way you talk about water being stirred up or agitated. It's calm one minute and it's all stirred up the next. That picture is used in the Greek language for what happens in these moments. You know, you're a disciple and you're watching Jesus drive out the demons, and you're watching him solve hunger problems, and that's all great. You got your peace then, but then their peace gets all stirred up when they see him arrested and when they see him executed.
And that surprised Jesus because he had told them it was coming.
That he did.
We've been talking about how familiar that dilemma is. This spring hasn't been anything like any of us were anticipating. And now we're sitting around under quarantine, behind closed doors, just waiting and stirring up all those fearful questions in our minds about what happens next and what do we do now, and letting those things diminish our peace more and more.
Yeah, and that, by the way, is the other word that Jesus uses there, where he says, "Why do doubts arise in your mind?" And that should be really familiar to us, because that's not the word for not trusting or not believing. It's the word for that inner dialogue that starts up when things don't go the way you expected. You start trying to explain things when you get anxious and when you're taken aback.
But just because we're surprised by things doesn't mean God is. He knows the changes that are coming. He was aware before all of this even happened this spring that it was coming. And his promises are still true. He does not need our version of the plan to pan out in order to accomplish his.
Right. So after all of our talk about waiting and all of this Easter and resurrection stuff, we thought this would be a good time to connect with you guys and talk about the fact that his promises are not broken. There's an encouragement in that. We could have greater peace if, when that inner dialogue starts up, we take the time during the wait to add God's voice in. His promises aren't broken. So when things don't go the way we expect, that's a good time to start, asking yourself, what was the plan, and what was I thinking before? That wasn't part of his plan, but doesn't need to be, because he's not going to fail. And this is a good time to let that inner dialogue start, as long as we're also using the time to let his voice enter into the dialogue. Now's a good time to listen. Now is a good time to learn from God's word, to learn from his promises. There's great peace in that.
There sure is.
So I guess that was about it. And we wish you a very blessed weekend, and blessings on your worship. Bye-bye.